I'm Zack Teffeteller, for those who haven't met me yet. This is my wife, Leigh, and we're your 401k advisors. And we're just kind of here chaperoning and really just helping your HR program out. And Laura and the HR team have worked really hard to put this together. We're going to try to do this a little bit more in the future, but today we're going to focus on Social Security. And we brought Ryan Webb with us. He's with Protective. He's a Social Security expert. Leigh and I rely on him all the time at work. I mean, especially for retirement income strategies, he's really been a great resource for us, and we think he's going to be a good resource for you today. He's from Jacksonville, and he's got to drive back after this, so we're going to have time for questions. I promised him I would embarrass him by saying this. We're going to have time for questions after, but he's going to scoot after that. So if there is anything that you didn't get to ask or you didn't want to ask maybe in front of the group, just come to Leigh or I, and we'll get the question answered for you right away. We really appreciate everybody being here. Afterwards, Alex is going to do a quick presentation on the HSA program too, so just sit tight after this program, and we'll do that as well. Thanks for coming.
And if you've already had lunch before, go ahead and take a sandwich with you on the way out still.
For backup,
Yes.
For later.
Does everybody have a set of pamphlets at their spot? Or does anybody need them?
Okay.
All right. Well, thanks. Thank you, Zack and Leigh, and thanks everyone for setting it up in HR. So, like Zack said, my name is Ryan Webb. I'm with Protective, and so we partner with Edward Jones mainly, with Zack and Leigh. So I can help them around the retirement income planning phase, and so that's kind of my role. I travel. Man, where do I travel? I was talking about this. I travel all over the place. I travel the whole state of Georgia, the whole state of Alabama, almost the whole state of South Carolina, and I have a little bit of Northeast Florida, which is where I live. So I run around all over the place. I have a wife and 3 boys. So I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an almost 1-year-old. He turns 1 on October 17th. So Tuesday's a big day, big day. So if I look tired or stressed out or whatever, that's what it is. It's the kids, right? And so I'm going to be hustling back to them, like Zack said, after this. But I appreciate you all coming. We're going to talk about Social Security. So I know it's a fun topic. It's what we all want to talk about at lunchtime here. So I'll make it as fun as I possibly can. Well, one thing I'll mention, just because it makes me feel special. So the NSSA there, it's not NSA. Okay, so NSSA stands for National Social Security Advisor. So I just want to tell you that because it makes me feel special. So I do a lot with Social Security, okay? So I can answer a lot of questions on that, or obviously I work with them and they can help kind of get us in contact and get us helping with planning. But this is what's on the menu. Hopefully y'all can see this. We're going to be talking a little bit about the history on Social Security very briefly, just because it's fun. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about benefits, obviously. We'll talk about filing. We're going to talk about different strategies. We'll talk about basically spousal benefits, survivor benefits, things like that, and what those all mean. Some other nuances that you all should know about from really that high level. That'll be really important when making the planning decision of when to file and what that looks like and what effect does that have on really myself and even spouse and family, okay? And we'll talk briefly on taxes, but not that much because no one wants to talk about that for a long time. So we'll talk about it a little bit at the end. My first question though for you all, and I'll be extremely impressed. No one got this right last time. We had a lot more people, so I'll be really impressed. Does anyone know when the exact date, don't Google it, the exact date Social Security was signed into law? So month and then the day of the month. Anyone know? I'm very impressed.
April 1st.
That's a good guess. We had April 15th.
August 15th.
I like that. Close.
1935.
1935.
Yeah, August 14th, 1935. So it could be a trivia question. That's why I tell you. August 14th, 1935. Who was the president at the time? Don't answer. It was Roosevelt. So it was FDR. Okay, so FDR signed this into law August 14th, 1935. The reason that's significant, right, is think about what was happening at that time. And it says up here it was a great system, and I'll tell you why. Because in 1935, 37, all this area, it only paid retired workers, okay? So it didn't have spousal benefits, child benefits, disability benefits, all this stuff. It only paid retired workers, okay? The other thing that was interesting is life expectancy. Way different back then. Right? You can see here the average life expectancy was 63. So now here's the reason why it was a great system, okay? Does anyone know what the full retirement age was at that time? So basically when they rolled it out, and they signed it into law. There was a full retirement age, the age you can get the full benefit based on your work history. What age was that? It'd be a great system for you all if it was 50 or 58, but it was a great system for the government, okay? Because the full retirement age at that time was 65, okay?
You're gonna die for it.
There you go, a lot of people did. I mean, in all reality, right? They never received benefits, or they only got it for a couple of years and they passed away, right? And again, it only paid retired workers, so it didn't pay a spouse or survivor or something like that. So it was a great system, right? For the government. So they were smart, they knew what they were doing, they're like, man, this is a great system. Well, now it's totally different, right? There's been a lot of changes, right? There's been a lot of changes in the Social Security law. And this will give you kind of an idea, but you may know some of this stuff, right? Now, life expectancy is a lot longer, right? So it's giving you the numbers here. If you're male, if you're 65 today and you're male, I round up to 85. If you're female, I round up to 87, right? So a lot longer, okay? So people now are drawing on Social Security a lot longer. There are folks drawing into their 90s, right? Easily, okay? So that's a big draw on it. The other thing is now it's not just retired workers, right? It's spouse, it's survivors, right? Widower benefit, it's really, there's divorcee benefits, we'll talk about that. There's child benefits, there's disability benefits, there's all these other benefits. So all of that just equates to more money coming out than going in, right? And that's been happening for a little while now, right? And that's why there's these two trust funds, okay? There's two trust funds that kind of supplement whatever the system can't generate from our taxes, okay? Because 80% of benefits that are paid out every single month are from us paying taxes, okay? So the taxes we pay this month, right, are immediately going to go out to those beneficiaries the next month, right? Like that's how it works. So 80% of the benefits going out are from us paying taxes. The other 20 is from two trust funds, okay? The Old Age and Survivor Insurance Trust Fund and the Disability Insurance Trust Fund. The problem is that those two trust funds, right, are being depleted, right? Because the amount of cost for the Social Security Administration, the system, and for the benefits going out, all of those expenses are greater than us paying the taxes and the interest and everything else they're earning in those trust funds. So we're slowly depleting those. And so the last bullet point here, this is what everyone talks about and is nervous about, is that under current assumptions that the program's only going to be able to pay full benefits until 2020 or 2034. Okay, and they revise this number. Sometimes it'll go to 33, sometimes it's 35. So it's in that range of 2034. But what they're talking about is those two trust funds. Because if Congress does nothing, okay, they do nothing. If they do nothing,
That's currently the truth.
you got it. Then it's going to run out, those two trust funds, by 2034. So that means only 80% of benefits are going to be payable, okay? So my question is, do we think Congress is going to do nothing, right? Or are they going to do something? So my answer to you is, if you look back in history, they did something in the 80s, right? Because the same scenario was happening. They're probably going to do something again, right? They definitely will do something again, but it's not going to be like next year, right? They're going to wait. I don't know what they're going to do, but they'll need to do something. They'll need to change the full retirement age again. They're going to need to do something with taxes. They're going to have to do something, right? Because if they, again, do nothing, they're going to be depleted and only 80% of benefits will be paid out. So everyone will get a pay cut, and that's not good for anybody, right? And they don't want to do that, so they got to figure that out. I wish I had the crystal ball that told you this is what they're going to do. I just have no idea what they're going to do. I'd imagine it has to do with full retirement age. Taxes is tricky, so I just don't know what they'll do with that. So we'll see what that looks like. This slide is really intended to remind you that Social Security is only meant to cover 40% of your income in retirement. Okay, so only 40% is what it was meant for. The other 60 is kind of up to us and our investments, okay? So that was the intent. And there are folks that rely on it more than 40%. Maybe they just don't have a lot of expenses in retirement, or maybe they just cut back because they just don't have that nest egg kind of built up. But it was meant for only 40%. Works with the rest of these other things like 401ks and our savings and IRAs, things like that. This is showing you what the benefits could be. This is based on 2023 numbers, and this is based on a very high income earner, someone that was paying the maximum on Social Security tax every single year. Because right now there is a limit. Right? Once you get over a certain limit, you're not paying that Social Security tax anymore. You're going to keep paying Medicare tax. So if you're a high income earner, eventually you're kind of, you've maxed yourself out, right? So this is showing you what the benefits could be if every single year over your work history you were paying that maximum benefit. It equates to 36 a month, or 43,000 or so a year, right? So big number, but again, only meant to cover about 40% of retirement income. But that's individual, kind of depends on you and expenses. A couple things with Social Security, and you all may already know this. It obviously lasts your lifetime, lasts a spouse's lifetime. We'll talk about spousal benefits, but it also adjusts for inflation. So does anyone know, it was announced today, so anyone know what the COLA adjustment's going to be next year for Social Security? What was that?
3 to 3.5%.
So it's 3.2% to be exact. Yeah, but it was in that range of 3 to 3.5, and so they officially came out today saying it was 3.2%. Okay, last year, I guess for this year, it was 8.7%, right? So it was a big jump, record, right? So 3.2 may seem like nothing, but it's still pretty good little jump. All right, in terms of how do we determine the benefit, right? So they work on a credit system, right, for us. Basically, for every $1,620 in earnings, we earn 1 credit, but we are maxed out at earning 4 credits per year, right? So we hit that number pretty quickly, and you have to have 40 credits to be eligible, right, to have an actual benefit. So easy math would tell us you have to work at least 10 years paying into Social Security. So I imagine all of us are well past that, but that's how they look at it in terms of when can I get access to it, right? I have to earn these credits, but then it's also coming down to age, and we'll talk about that. But what they really do to determine your number is they take the 35 years where you earn the most. So if you worked for 40 years paying Social Security, they're taking the 35 years you earned the most, and they're going to divide it by 420. And I got that number by taking 35 years times 12 months in a year is 420. And that's what they're doing. They're averaging it out monthly. Okay, that's basically it. There's some other little inflation type stuff they do, because obviously the money you were making in 1970 is worth a lot more, now. So they kind of adjust it for that difference in cost of living adjustment. But just think 35 years I earned the most, averaged out monthly. That's how they are determining it. If you only have 30 years of work history, well, that means that you're going to get 5 zeros in there, and so you're going to have a negative impact on you, right? If you work a couple more years, it's going to help your benefit be higher, right? Because you're getting closer to that 35 years. I would focus on this one here in the middle, online statements. So if you haven't gone online, I would recommend going online to check that. Go to Social Security, NSSA.gov, register, get an account, make sure you can get your statement there and check on that, because it's always good to make sure it's accurate. Right? I'd love to tell you that everything that Social Security Administration does and the government does is accurate, but it's not, right? So you need to check that. I mean that seriously, right? I mean, it's just, they're people too. So even if you call Social Security Administration, you can get wrong answers sometimes. It just happens. And so I think checking yourself will be important to make sure your earnings and everything match up and that looks right. But going online is the easiest way. There are tricky scenarios where you will need to go to the administration, you'll need to call or something like that, but that's kind of unique scenarios. But the easiest thing is online. Now, full retirement age. So that really depends on what year you were born, and we'll talk about that on the next slide. But does anyone know what age you can actually file for benefits? How early can you file? What age? 62. Yeah, that's the general, right? So there's other scenarios where it could be earlier, like if you're a survivor or a disability, but 62. Does anyone know, in terms of waiting, what if I wait, past my full retirement age? Does anyone know how that works, or why I would want to do that?
Money.
Get more money. Okay. How do you get more money?
Pay more taxes.
So, as you delay, you're getting an 8% increase. So the government, Social Security, is giving you 8% increases all the way to age 70, but it stops at that point, okay? So there's no reason to wait till after 70. 70 is where you're maxing it out, okay? And that's an important play for survivor, like for a spouse, and I'm going to talk about that later. But 70 is kind of your number, okay? But it really, in terms of your full retirement age, it depends on your birth year, and that's what this is showing right here, is what year was I born, right? And here's my full retirement age. And again, full retirement age is the age where I can receive the full benefit available based on my 35 years where I earn the highest, all that good stuff. Okay. If you take it early, penalized. If you wait, you get a benefit, right? 8% up to age 70. Okay. So to give you a numerical example of that, this is what it would look like for someone that their retirement full retirement age is 67. They take it at 62, you can see that reduction, right? Pretty big reduction. If they wait, though, you can see that increase, the 8% over 3 years. So that's why it's at 1240. Okay. So that's just the math on it. The reason it matters, we talked about it earlier. Folks living longer and longer, so you have to think about that and what that kind of break even would be. Most of the time, the break even, if I were to take it at 62 versus what if I took it at 66 and change or whatever, how long do I have to live to kind of break even, right? Where it was better for me to start at full retirement age. It's kind of that early 80s. It's about 80, 81, okay? So it's right in there. It's going to depend on your exact full retirement age, but it's kind of that early 80s. And again, the projections are most, on average, right, are going to live longer than that. So if waiting to full retirement age a lot of the time is a good plan, especially if you're still working. And we'll reference that kind of later. There are reasons why you may consider starting early. And I think the biggest obvious one is you have major health problems, right? If you have such significant health problems that life expectancy is not going to get to that kind of early 80s, it may make sense. But you have to factor in also just spouse and things like that as well for survivor benefits. So there's things to consider there. If you're especially the high income earner, so we've got to factor in all those things. But there are scenarios where it may make sense for you to file early. All right, so spousal benefits, we're focusing on 3 here basically. You have the basic spousal benefit. We have a divorcee benefit that can come into play. Then we have a survivor benefit or the widower benefit. Those are the 3 that we're going to really go through here next. The basic spousal benefit's very easy. So as a spouse, you're entitled to 50% of your spouse's benefits. So I'll give you an example. Let's say my wife's benefit's $3,000 a month. Mine's $1,200, right? Well, 50% of $3,000 is $1,500, meaning I'm getting less than that. So the Social Security Administration will give me my $1,200 and an extra $300 because they're going to give me that boost, is what they call it, spousal boost, okay? But if I was more than $1,500, what if I was $1,600? We're not getting anything extra. It's just I'm above that 50% already, right? So we'll each get our own in that case. Let's say that my wife's is $3,000 and I didn't work at all, right? I don't have really a work history. I haven't worked 10 years. Well, I'm still entitled to half of hers, right? So I'm still entitled to $1,500. So that's a nice, little benefit there. But that's how that works. And it has a couple of stipulations. It has to do with when I'm filing, right? I have to file it, my full retirement age to get that full 50. Because if I file early, I'm getting reduced amounts. And my spouse has to have filed for benefits too. Just because she's 62 doesn't mean that I can all of a sudden file for benefits if I'm 66 and whatever the age is there. She would have to be filing for me to be entitled for that, or vice versa, depending on who's kind of that higher income earner. Okay, that's the key, and that's important because there was differences in the past with that, right? There was things called file and suspend and restricted application and all these things, but that all changed. Okay, that was all phased out. I think it was back really in 2015. The Obama administration changed that, so they found that as a loophole, right? And so they changed that, and so that's not really an opportunity anymore. I'm just going to go kind of list these out. It's in the packet, but there are benefits potentially for divorcees, okay? So it really depends on very specific stipulations. The marriage has to have lasted 10 years. They have to be divorced for at least 2 years. The former spouse has to be entitled to benefits. That means they have to be at least 62. You as the claiming ex-spouse, let's say, you have to be 62 and you have to be unmarried, okay? So there's a lot of stipulations with that. And then, of course, as the filing ex-spouse, I can't be entitled to more benefit, like a higher benefit than what half of my ex-spouse's is, right? So like in my example, the $3,000 and $1,500, like if I already have a $2,000 benefit, well, I'm not going to get anything from that ex-spouse because it's more than half, okay? So all of that factors in. But this one is really important for us that are married, right? We're talking, survivor type benefits, especially for the higher income earner. just because what we do could have an effect on a survivor benefit. So the good news is the survivor is going to get the higher benefit. Okay, so they inherit like the higher benefit. So I go back to my example. If wife's is 3,000, mine's like, 1,200. I'm getting that extra, right? And that's good. But let's say that she passed away first. Well, I'm gonna basically inherit that 3,000. I'll get the 3,000, but I'll lose that other 1,500. Okay, but I'm at least getting that higher one. So that's good news. It's also good news that I'm inheriting that extra that if they delayed. So let's say my spouse delayed till 70, and then she passed away. Well, I would get that higher number because she delayed it. I'd get that. I would inherit essentially that 8% increase. That's a good thing. So that's what I meant with when we're talking about delaying and getting that all the way to 70. If you're the high income earner, you could really max that out for you and even survivor. Because if you're the high income earner, right, and you pass away, well, your spouse is going to take over that high number that you got up to because you waited. So something to think about when it comes to planning with that. The survivor has this mentions it up here. The survivor has a couple things they can do differently than others. They can file early than others. They can file at 60, right, versus 62. They can also basically file for just a spousal benefit only and then let their own benefit delay if they haven't started. So let's say that I'm a surviving spouse and I haven't filed yet. Okay, I haven't filed yet and my spouse passed away. Well, I could file for just a spousal benefit. I could say, I want to file for just that benefit, and I'm going to let my own benefit is going to grow now all the way. I could wait till age 70, and I can switch and get that higher amount if it's higher. That's the only case where it makes sense, obviously, right? If I file for the spousal only, I'm waiting for it to go till 70, so I can switch to get a higher amount later. Okay, that's the only way it would make sense. So there's calculators that you can mess with, and we can figure that out. But that's the only place that it would really makes sense, okay? All right, so now this may not pertain to anybody, but it could. I think we had at least one maybe in the last session, maybe one or two where this pertained to them. But this has to do with folks that worked in government positions and they didn't pay Social Security tax, so they're not really getting a Social Security benefit. They got a government pension, okay? But there's two different things where this factors in. One, if you're married to someone that did get a Social Security benefit, or if you worked in both. Let's say you worked in a government position, earned a pension, didn't pay Social Security, then you switched, and now you're earning a Social Security benefit. And if you work long enough, you're essentially getting both, right? I mean, you have access to both. And so there's two provisions here, windfall elimination and then government pension offset. The first one here, the windfall elimination provision's bad. We'll talk about that. The next one, the government pension offset's awful. So we'll talk about both of them. The windfall elimination provision has to do with folks that fall into the camp of working in both, I guess, sectors, you can say, right? They worked for the government, didn't pay any Social Security tax, earned a great pension, switched careers, started paying Social Security tax, obviously not getting a pension. And if they work long enough, we said 10 years, you're getting access to a Social Security benefit, so now you have both. Well, the government's not going to let you get best of both worlds, okay? So what they're going to do is they're going to reduce it depending on how many years you've paid into Social Security. So if you've paid into Social Security less than 30 years, then you're going to have a reduced amount, and it could be all the way up to $557 a month of your Social Security benefit. But if you work over 30 years paying Social Security benefit, you could actually get both. You'll get that Social Security benefit and you'll get that government pension because they feel that you have paid enough taxes into Social Security to earn both of them, okay? But that could mean you're working for quite a while, right? 50 years or something like that, let's say, on both of those. So if you kind of did both, and let's say you only worked for 20 years paying into Social Security, well, obviously you're going to have a reduced amount. It's not going to be the maximum of 557, but it'll be something, 300 something. So it just depends on that scenario of how many years you actually paid into Social Security. So that one's bad, but this one's awful because it can completely reduce a spousal benefit. And it's because, again, not getting the best of both worlds. We know that as a spouse, I'm entitled to 50% of my spouse's Social Security benefit. I told you that earlier. Well, what if my scenario I told you, my wife worked in a government position her whole career, and she earned a great government pension, and she didn't pay any Social Security tax, right? She didn't have a Social Security benefit. But I did the opposite. I had a great career, and I maxed out and paid a ton of Social Security tax, right? And I have a great Social Security benefit. Well, we're getting both of those. That sounds great. And then isn't she entitled to half of my Social Security benefit too? So we get even more now, all from the government guaranteed, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to reduce that spousal benefit in my scenario. It's very simple. They take my example, my wife, her pension. They're going to take 2/3 of that number, whatever that number is, that dollar amount per month is going to be reduced on the spousal benefit side. So if your pension's high enough, it's definitely going to wipe out the whole spousal benefit. So you'll get the government pension for your spouse, let's say my wife, and for me, I'll get my Social Security benefit, but she's not going to get a spousal benefit if her pension's high enough, because that's all they're doing. 2/3 of the government pension, that number per month is how much they're going to reduce my spousal benefit. Okay, that's a unique scenario though. Again, if that may not really pertain to anyone. This next part could pertain to any of us really, if we file early and still work. I actually had this question in the last session. I think we had someone that might have even filed, and they didn't even think about this, right? But then they realized it after the fact. If you file for benefits early, so before your full retirement age, anytime there, and you continue to have earned income, right? You're subject to what's called an earnings limits test, and you are potentially going to just basically negate your Social Security benefit. They'll withhold it from you because you earned too much. So it may not make any sense for you to even file if you're still working. But some folks don't know this. So this little number right here, this changes every year, but for 2023, $21,240. For every $2 you earn over that, they would reduce your benefit by $1, okay? And this only pertains to folks that are filing for benefits early, before their full retirement age, and they are continuing to work and have earned income. Once you get over that number, that's where you start seeing the checks withheld, and it doesn't really make sense as to why you filed, right? And so that's important to know. If you earn under that, right? If you can maybe work a little part-time thing and work under it, maybe it can work for you, right? Where you can kind of work a little bit, but not too much in retirement. But that's important to know. This number gets better once you get into the year that you're going to turn your full retirement age. It goes up to like 54 some thousand, and it's every $3 you lose $1 kind of thing. And then once you get into the month of that year where you're turning your full retirement age, this goes away, and you can earn as much as you want. Okay, and you're not seeing a reduction in your Social Security benefit because you've reached full retirement age. Okay, and so that's important to know, just in case you're ever filing early. Taxes, we'll talk a little bit about taxes. We obviously pay Social Security tax, right, as we're from our paychecks, right, we're paying that. But then also when we start receiving benefits, those can be taxed as well, and we're gonna talk about that. All right, so basically what Social Security Administration does, and this will be kind of a brief deal on the taxes. I think anything tax-wise, CPA is always the best person to go to. But what Social Security Administration does is they use this formula. They essentially take your modified adjusted gross income and they add half of your Social Security benefit, and they get that number. It's called provisional income. And they look at these brackets depending on if you file single or joint. And I'll use joint here. So what they're saying is once they calculate your provisional income, if that number is $32,000 or less for joint filers, then that benefit for Social Security you're getting won't be taxed at all, right? None of it would be taxed. Not a huge number though, right? Once you get to $32,000 to $44,000, you fall in that range. Somewhere in there, up to 50% of your Social Security benefit would be taxed, okay? Once you get above that, so you can see here, once you're over $44,000 joint filer in terms of that provisional income, then up to 85% of your benefit would be taxed, okay? And so, I know that may sound depressing, right? That stinks, but remember, that number's not 100%, so that's good. It's a positive thing. Could that change? Absolutely. So, I don't know what's gonna happen there, but right now, these are the limits of where they are. And again, it has to do with that provisional income that's calculated. Huh?
50%.
Because it's a range, right?
All right, so if I go to, say, we go to 33,000, we get taxed by $1,000.
So no, what this is saying is whatever that Social Security benefit is, up to 50% of it. So if it's a $2,000 benefit, up to $1,000 of it could be hit with taxes, depending on your ordinary income taxes. It's saying that this is your your provisional income, if it falls between 32 and 44, it's saying wherever that number lands, it could be anywhere from, a couple percentages all the way up to 50, because it depends on how much over. If you're only $1,000 over, you're not that much over,
Right.
right? Yeah. So the question is, if for provisional income, if you're barely over the 32, right? You're 33. Yeah, you'll pay a little bit. You're not gonna pay 50%. You'll pay a little bit. It's up to 50%, right? So it depends on how much you are over it, right? In between there. That's why it says up to.
So,
Yeah.
so it's gonna take into account your social security, your pension.
Yeah, half of it. So all these numbers, your modified adjusted gross income. So the question is, what is provisional income calculating, right? What's that look like? It really is just like modified adjusted gross income plus half of your Social Security benefit is what it's going to be. So, and again, working with a CPA, working with someone that's focused on taxes, they definitely can help you with that number and what that looks like. There are certain things that don't count towards this calculation. I mentioned it last time, like Roth accounts, right? Like a Roth IRA. Taking money out of there, that doesn't count towards this. So things like that are important to think about in planning, right? During retirement phase, when I'm taking money out of my investments, where are they coming from, right? What account are they coming from? Because a Roth is tax-free income, so it doesn't count towards that, which is important. So that's something easily you could consider. And that's just one, right? I'm sure there's others, other areas where that could work, but just something to think about. This is just, again, reiterating where to go. I still like the middle option. I like going online and being able to research that myself, get my statements and everything. You definitely can set time with an office. You can set up a phone call. There are, again, situations where you have to do that. Like if you want to file for just a survivor benefit because you haven't started yours yet and you want to apply just for a survivor one, like that's a special thing you have to set up time to do. Because if you try to do it online, you're not going to be able to. You'll be filing for your own benefit, and then that will be bad. You would have not wanted to do that. So you need to make sure that you're doing it the right way, depending on what's happening. All right, that's mainly what I had. I know we had more questions in the middle last time. This is mainly what I wanted to go through, that 30,000 foot view. It's just a part of the picture for retirement income. We're kind of working it all together. You're gonna see how that all fits in, but I like the ideas of where's the income coming from, right? Roth accounts, things like that. How does that all work together, right? And figuring out what's best overall. But I'll open it up to any questions, or if you have anything else you guys want to mention, Zach or Lee.
Yeah, I have one thing. At the end of the last session, I had someone come up to me who, at GIW, I think we have 18 different countries that are represented.
Wow.
So about 15 years ago, he moved to the U.S. So he has 15 years of working in the U.S., but he'll be 67 full retirement.
Yep.
So is that going to be 20 years of zeros that he'll have if he files at 67?
Yeah, so that's a question that I was going to research more for sure. But
Okay.
yeah, I mean, basically, because he's only paid
What I was
Social
thinking.
Security for 15 years, right?
Right.
So, but I was curious on that scenario. What if he, every year after he works, right? That's going to help him because he'll have more years of paying Social Security tax. So that is a good one to confirm of if there's any kind of tricky thing there that I don't know about with,
Okay.
to make it different. But pretty confident it's only going to be the 15 years because
I
that's where
figured
you're
that,
paying
but
Social
I
Security
should
tax, right?
remind
Yeah.
you for sure.
Yeah, no, it's a unique one. But every year he pays into it, right? That helps him. He'll get an increase, right? So that's good. Yes.
Maybe a stupid question, but
No dumb questions.
single and I have a child.
Mhm.
Do they get any benefit at all?
So child benefit's a whole nother thing. It depends on age, right? But that's a sidebar kind of thing. We can talk about that because yes, I mean children can get benefits. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll put 62.
it's a certain scenario. Yeah. Yeah. It has to do with age is one thing to factor in.
So what would you suggest when your spouse is 5 years younger than you? Not divorce.
So again, it depends on who's the higher income earner, right? Thinking about that. I like the strategy, if you can, of delaying if you're the high income earner personally, because you really maximize that because you're the 5 years older. So unfortunately, I don't, this is the facts. You're male and you're older by 5 years. You're more likely to pass before her, right? Just more likely. So yeah, because you want to. Yeah. There you go. I like that. It's my choice. So my point though, right, is if you're the higher income earner, right, she's inheriting your benefit, right? So if you can get to 70, right, and then you turn on then, she's inheriting the highest amount they could possibly be. So that's just something to consider, but that has to fit into your kind of plan in retirement, right? So something to think about. But the nice thing is that there are calculators that you can mess with those numbers. You can play with them saying, oh, I'm going to, turn on at my full retirement age, or I'm going to turn on at 69, 70, and I die at this age, like it'll play with it. Because I can't tell you what's the exact absolute best thing to do unless I know exactly when you're going to die, and I just don't. So that's the problem, right? Seriously. Yeah, that's the problem.
I told her she was gonna have to go to work at Walmart or something.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Yeah.
So you work until 70, is that what you're saying?
Any other questions on anything?
I have one.
Oh, we have 2 more, I see. Okay.
You may have gone over this while I stepped out. Is your Social Security benefit based on your whole, all of your total earnings, or just like the last 5 or 10 years?
Yeah, so it's
Do you get the max amount?
Yeah, so the question is, how do they calculate your benefits, right, based on your work history? So it's 35 years where you earn the most, right? So they're going to take only the 35 years where you made the most money. So let's say you worked 40 years, only taking 35. But if you've only worked 30 or 15, that's all they're taking, and they're putting in a bunch of zeros, and they're going to average it out monthly. So basically, they're going to divide it by 420. They add up all the numbers. That's a lot of numbers are adding up, dividing it by 420 to get your number. They adjust it for inflation and things like that. That's a whole nother kind of thing they do, but that's a whole nother discussion of how the math behind it. Just know they adjust it based on kind of inflation for today. Because in 1980, right, if you made 20 grand, that was a good amount of money. Well, if you made 20 grand today, that's not good, right? So they have to kind of adjust it up that way. So that's what they do. Does that make sense?
Yes, say that again, though, how it's figured, what
Yep.
percentage?
So they
Or
take,
they
just take the
amount?
35 years of your work history where you made the most money,
Okay.
and they divide it by 420. I got 420 because I took 35 years and I times it by 12 months in a year, and that gives me 420.
Thank you.
You had a question?
Say you go to full retirement.
Yep.
You continue to work.
Mhm.
Where's the break-even point on that? Is there one?
Yeah, so
And also, does it still increase as you work?
if you're earning more,
Yeah.
yeah, and that was the question that we talked about, and I think the answer to that is yes. If you're at full retirement age and you keep working past that, and let's say you file for benefits, your full retirement age, you can keep working and earn as much as you want. Well, if you're earning a whole bunch more right now than you were, I don't know, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, those are going to help you because those hit on there, right? So that's a good thing. The other question you asked, I think we answered it. It's kind of like 80, 81, that mid 80 or early 80s, sorry. The question is, where's the break even? If I were to file it at 62, or if I were to file at my full retirement age,
60 full time.
yeah, full retirement, let's call it 67, just to be easy. What's the break even to where it made sense for me to file at 67, right, to wait? And it's usually that like 80, 81, it depends on your actual full retirement age, but that's usually the break even, to where if you would have just waited to full retirement age, because the check is so much bigger than if you filed at 62, you would have caught up, you made up for that 5 years in my example where you weren't getting any Social Security because you didn't file. You see what I'm saying? Does that make sense? Yeah.
But I was saying from 67 to the 70.
Mm-hmm.
You held
Oh, I see you're saying that. Because I do the math on that. Same. It's going to be much higher, and probably in the 80s in there, the higher 80s. But the big one with that is the survivor. That's what I'm talking about, waiting till 70, because now you're really maximizing. Because the chances, if you have a 65-year-old couple, the chances of one of them living into their 90s is like over 50%. I mean, it's pretty high right now based on life expectancy. So that's where you really get the benefit for waiting to 70 as a survivor. Okay? But what you're asking is, let's say it's just me. We'd have to look at the exact math on it, but it's probably in the higher 80s, I'd bet. Yeah.
But he won't, nothing will increase after 70.
Exactly.
So he
Yeah.
needs to
Yeah,
just
70.
start
Yeah, you need to file. You don't get any
filing.
increases after 70. Yeah. But what he's saying is, what if I waited to 70 I could have filed at 66 in whatever months. You know, I could have been receiving benefits for almost 4 years, basically, let's say. So where's that break even of I should have waited to 70 or what is it? So the math on it, I'm guessing, is in the kind of mid to high 80s of where it would have made sense to just wait till 70. It depends on how long, you know, you live, really. So,
Yeah, but you should be doing this, like, I was gonna do 67.
Mhm.
You should start filing like 66 and a half, don't you?
Yeah, you're filing early to make sure, well, early as in you're telling them I'm going to start at this time. Yeah, we had that other question. It's, within the first couple months. Yeah, you want to give them time to process it so it lands right on your birthday is what you're saying. Yes. You want to do that.
Couple months ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And that's all online where you can do that. Or you can set up time or you
Well, they
can
send you
call.
always something about you can do it at 66 and 9 months.
Yeah, to make it so exactly. So you make sure that it starts on time, basically, on your exact 67th, month you turn that age. Yeah, full retirement age, if that's what you want to do.
So you said that if you wait till your full retirement age, there's still a cap on what you can make if you work for retirement.
No, the no more earnings limit. No. So once you hit full retirement age, that earnings limit we talked about, that's gone. It's only for if you're taking it early.
Ryan,
Mhm.
thank you.
Yeah.
If there's nothing else, we'll go ahead and let you go. And there's
Sure.
one thing I want to add, but we'll let you go ahead and
No,
park.
whatever.
Thanks.
You're good.
Well,
Other
to that
questions?
effect, Ryan, if I was thinking about this last time, what if you fall asleep behind the wheel and forget to file? Will they pay you in arrears? Will they catch you up from where your real retirement date?
So you're saying if you,
Let's say you wait 2 months to file.
you're waiting, so
Will they backdate your first check to when you should have filed, or do you really need to be on?
So you
it?
need to be on it because it's when they start it essentially.
Right.
They're gonna start it. I think they make up for it because you lost out on it because you said you wanted to start here.
Okay.
I think they make up for it, but I can
Okay, I know it's
triple
kind of a
check on it.
semantics
Yeah,
question.
but it's a planning thing. Yeah.
Thanks, Ryan.
Yeah.
Yeah. One thing I wanted to add, and I know Ryan's got to scoot, but one thing he covered is that Social Security accounts for about 40% of the income that you're going to need in retirement. So that is why Zach and I felt like this was such a great topic to talk to you guys about, because we're here to service the 401k plan. So your outside assets, your 401ks, your IRAs, your Roth IRAs, other income streams, pensions, that's going to cover that other 60%. So we want to make sure that your investments are in line with your goals, your risk tolerance, to help get you to retirement so that when you retire, you're not only on Social Security. We have a lot of people, we have our own individual retail office as well, where they'll come to us and they'll say, well, how can you make this $100 grow because my Social Security is not enough? Well, once they've retired, there's really nothing they can do except go back to work. We don't want that for you. So that's why we're here, and we're at your guys' services. We'd love to sit down with you. If we haven't yet, just reach out to HR and let them know. Thank you.